The nurse's smile was warm, genuine, the kind reserved for good news. "We got the results back. Your husband's a match. We can schedule the transplant as early as next week. Isn't that wonderful?" Bella didn't move. Didn't smile back. A match. She heard the words again, slower this time, like her mind was trying to translate them into something that made sense. Because she remembered his face. She remembered his hand wrapped around hers, his thumb moving in slow circles against her knuckles the way it always did when he wanted her to feel safe. "I'm not a match," he'd said. "I'm sorry. I wish I could fix this for you." And she'd believed him, because why wouldn't she? He'd held her hand. He'd looked her in the eyes. "Ma'am? Is everything all right? Her voice came out smaller than she intended. "Can I see the results? The actual paperwork?" The nurse's hesitation lasted only a second, but Bella caught it. "Of course. Let me just pull the file." Bella sat alone in the hallway, the word match still ringing in her ears, refusing to fit anywhere. She stood, needing air, needing to move, and that's when she saw him. Coming out of the pregnancy ward. His best friend beside him. A scan result in his hand. Both of them smiling like the world had just handed them something precious. Her chest caved in. She turned and walked, then walked faster. Then she wasn't walking at all. She was just moving, blind, the hallway blurring, tears she didn't remember starting falling freely now. She didn't see the person in front of her until she collided with him, her legs giving out. Strong hands caught her before she hit the floor. "Whoa, you're crying." A voice, low and unhurried. "Beautiful ladies like you shouldn't be crying." He held her there, steady, and for a moment neither of them moved. Their gazes met, and something in her chest, already shattered, shifted. He carried her through the doors like it was nothing, ignoring the way the receptionist's eyes widened at the sight of him, tattoos, piercing, a crying woman in his arms, and set her down gently in a chair near Tria. She collapsed, he told the nurse, before Bella could explain herself. "Might want to look at her properly. She's shaking." "Sir, are you family?" "No." He said it easily, already turning to leave. Then he paused, glanced back at Bella, really looked at her, the kind of look that made her feel seen for the first time in longer than she could remember, and sat down in the chair beside her instead. "I'll wait." "You don't have to," Bella managed. "I know." He didn't elaborate. They ran a few checks, blood pressure, blood work, a quick scan. Bella barely registered any of it, still hearing the nurse's voice from earlier looping under everything. "Your husband's a match. We can schedule the transplant as early as next week." When the doctor came back, his expression was calm. "Practiced. Everything looks stable for now," he said, glancing at her chart. "But I want to be honest with you, Ms. Lawson, your stress levels are affecting your numbers. You need to be more careful. Rest. Avoid anything that raises your blood pressure." "Okay," Bella said quietly. "Especially," the doctor continued, not quite meeting her eyes, "given where things stand. Your husband isn't a match, and you're still fairly far down the donor list. The last thing your body needs right now is added stress." Bella's breath caught. Not a match. That's what Daniel had told her. That's what she'd believed, until 20 minutes ago, when a nurse had smiled at her and called it wonderful news. She looked toward the nurse from earlier, who was now hovering near the doorway, suddenly very interested in a clipboard. Their eyes met for half a second, and the nurse looked away first, too fast, her face going pale. "She knows. She knows she said something she shouldn't have." Bella opened her mouth and closed it again. What was she going to say? "The nurse who congratulated me an hour ago seems to disagree with you, doctor." In front of a stranger? In a hospital that, for all she knew, answered to people with more money and more reach than she did? So she said nothing. Just nodded, took the instructions for bed rest, and let them discharge her. In the car, he'd insisted on driving her, brushing off her protests with an easy, "You're not getting in a cab looking like that." She stared out the window, replaying it. Bed rest. The doctor's words. Not admitted. Not staying overnight. Just go home and don't move much. It should have felt like relief. Instead, it felt like one more door quietly closing, being sent back into a house, a marriage, a life that had just cracked open in front of her, with instructions to lie very still inside it. By the time she got home, it was past 9. Daniel was at the kitchen counter, scrolling through his phone, a half-eaten plate beside him. "You're back late," he said, not looking up. "I ordered without you. Figured you were caught up with the Junho account again." She stood in the doorway, still in her hospital wristband, and waited for him to notice. He didn't. "I was at the hospital," she said. That got his attention for a second. "Are you okay? You should have called me." "I tried to." He patted the seat beside him, already looking back at his phone. "Well, you're here now. Eat something, you look pale." Bella looked at him, really looked, the way she hadn't in longer than she could admit, and felt nothing where there used to be worry, or love, or even disappointment. Just a strange, quiet stillness. He doesn't even know what today was. She sat down, picked up a fork, and said nothing at all. Before he'd driven off the night before, Youngwook had lingered at her gate, engines still running, window down. "Give me your number." "That's not necessary," Bella said. "Thank you for the ride, really, but..." "It's necessary." He held out his phone, already unlocked, contact screen open and waiting. "I want to check on you tomorrow. Make sure you're not dead." "That's a little dramatic. You collapsed in a hospital hallway 4 hours ago." "I think I'm allowed a little dramatic." He hadn't smiled when he said it, but something in his tone made it impossible to be annoyed. She'd typed her number in just to make him leave. She hadn't expected him to actually use it. Bella woke to sunlight cutting across the ceiling and the particular ache of having cried herself to sleep, eyes swollen, throat raw, a headache pressing behind her temples like punishment for feeling too much the night before. Daniel was already gone. A note on the counter, written in his fast, slanted handwriting, "Early meeting with the Junho people. Rest. Call me if you need anything. D." She read it twice. Then a third time, searching for something that wasn't there. "Call me if you need anything." He'd said that line for 3 years. It had always sounded like care. This morning it sounded like a script he'd memorized so well he no longer had to think about it. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. "Unknown number. Did you die?" Bella stared at the screen for a long moment before a small, surprised laugh escaped her, the first sound she'd made all morning that wasn't a sob. "Bella, not yet. Bed rest is apparently very effective at keeping a person horizontal and miserable at the same time." "Unknown number. Good. Misery is more bearable horizontal anyway. Less effort." "Bella, that's surprisingly comforting." "Unknown number. I have my moments. This is Youngwook BTW. In case you deleted strange men from your phone on principle." "Bella, I considered it." "Youngwook, wise. Didn't stop you though." She set the phone down on her chest, staring at the ceiling, and felt, for the first time in longer than she could remember, something close to lightness. It didn't last. It couldn't. Not with everything else sitting in her chest like a stone. She hadn't found the strength to move yet. By mid-morning, the silence of the house had become unbearable. Bella sat propped against the headboard with her laptop, half watching emails pile up from the office, emails she wasn't supposed to be answering, on doctor's orders, but the alternative was sitting with her thoughts, and her thoughts were not safe company right now. Not a match. "Your husband isn't a match, and you're still fairly far down the donor list." He held my hand. She closed the laptop, pressed the heels of her palms against her eyes until she saw spots. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the nurse confused my file with someone else's. Maybe. But she'd seen his face when he told her. She'd felt his thumb against her knuckles, slow and deliberate, the way it only moved when he wanted her to believe something completely. He'd practiced that. He must have. You don't comfort someone that convincingly by accident. A knock at the door pulled her out of the spiral. She frowned. Daniel had a key, and the housekeeper didn't come on Tuesdays. She shuffled to the door, robe wrapped tight, and opened it to find Youngwook standing on her doorstep holding what appeared to be 4 different grocery bags, a stuffed animal under one arm. and the expression of someone who had made several decisions very quickly and regretted at least two of them. "I didn't know what sick people need," he said, by way of greeting. "So I got a bit of everything." Bella blinked at him. "How did you? You gave me your address last night, when I dropped you off. You don't remember?" "I remember giving you my number. Not my address. You gave me both. You were very out of it." He shrugged, stepping past her into the house without quite waiting for an invitation, setting the bags down on the kitchen counter with the easy confidence of someone who had decided, somewhere between the car and the door, that he was staying for a while. "Anyway, I got soup. And crackers." And he held up the stuffed animal, a slightly lopsided rabbit with visible uncertainty. "This. I don't know why I got this. The cashier looked at me like I needed it more than you did." Bella took the rabbit from him slowly, turning it over in her hands, and felt her throat tighten in a way that had nothing to do with her illness. "You didn't have to do any of this." "I know." He was already opening cabinets, looking for a pot, entirely unbothered. "Where do you keep your bowls?" "Youngwook." He paused. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't know me." He considered the question with more seriousness than she expected, not deflecting, not making a joke of it, just thinking. "Because yesterday you were crying so hard you didn't see where you were walking, and when I asked if you were okay, you couldn't even answer me." He found the bowls. Started pouring soup into one without looking at her. Nobody should be that alone. Especially not someone who's sick. The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of the stove clicking on. "Also," he added, glancing at her sideways, the corner of his mouth lifting, "you have very dramatic eyebrows when you're trying not to cry." "I find it compelling." "That is not a real reason." "It's a real reason. It's just not the only reason." He handed her the bowl, steam curling up between them. "Eat." Doctor's orders, probably, even if the doctor didn't specifically say soup. She sat at the counter and ate while he moved around her kitchen like he'd been there a dozen times before, asking offhand questions, what she did for work, how long she'd lived in this part of the city, whether she always kept her apartment this cold, and somehow, without her quite noticing it happening, an hour passed. Then two. It was the first time in longer than she could remember that the silence in her house hadn't felt like something she had to survive. Daniel came home just after 7 to find the apartment smelling like soup, a lopsided stuffed rabbit sitting on the couch, and his wife, actually smiling, actually present, laughing quietly at something on her phone. "You're in a good mood," he said, loosening his tie. There was no suspicion in it. Just mild observation, the way he might note the weather. "I had a good day," Bella said. And for the first time in longer than she wanted to admit, it was true. He didn't ask what had made it good. He never did. He kissed the top of her head on his way to the bedroom, already pulling out his phone, already somewhere else. Bella looked back down at her own phone, where Youngwook's last message was still glowing on the screen. "Youngwook, don't forget to actually rest. I'll know if you didn't. I have spies." "Bella, you have spies." "Youngwook, no. But I'll just assume the worst and show up again tomorrow to check." Same result. She smiled at the screen longer than she meant to. By the third day, Youngwook's visits had stopped being a surprise and started being a fixture, the kind of thing Bella found herself listening for, some part of her tracking the hours until the knock came. He talked while he cooked, mostly. Easy things. Stories that didn't ask anything of her. "My sister called me an idiot this morning," he said, stirring something on the stove with far more concentration than the task required. "Apparently I've been weird lately." Her word. "Weird how?" She said, "I've been smiling at my phone. Like an idiot." Her word again. She's very committed to the word idiot. He glanced at Bella, who was very pointedly not smiling. "I told her I don't know what she's talking about." "Did she believe you?" "Seon hasn't believed a single thing I've said since she was 14. It's a character flaw. Hers, not mine." He said it with so much fondness it undercut the insult entirely. "She lives with our mom. Comes by my place too much. Eats all my food and then acts offended when I point out there's less food. She sounds like she'd terrify me." "She'd love you," Youngwook said, easily, like it wasn't a strange thing to say about two people who'd never met. Then, like he'd heard himself, he cleared his throat and turned back to the stove. Anyway, soup again. I'm aware this is becoming a theme. I'm not complaining. Good. Because it's the only thing I know how to make that won't kill you. His phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at it, exhaled through his nose, and held it up so Bella could see the screen without quite meaning to. Suyun, who is she? Suyun, Appa. Suyun, I can see your location. You've been at the same address for 3 days. Suyun, are you in love? Be honest. I'll tell Mom gently. Youngwook turned the phone face down on the counter with the air of a man choosing not to engage with a fire. Your sister sounds like a menace, Bella said, delighted. She is the menace. The menace is her entire personality. He didn't deny anything else in the messages, which Bella noticed and chose, for now, not to mention. That evening, after he left, Bella sat with her laptop again, except this time, she wasn't avoiding her thoughts. She was finally ready to face them. She pulled up the hospital's patient portal, logged in, found the section for lab results and donor registry status, the same section she'd avoided since coming home, because some part of her had been hoping that if she didn't look, it might not be real. It was real. Donor match status. No registered donor on file. Last updated 14 months ago. 14 months. She scrolled further, hands cold, and found the date Daniel had sat across from her at the kitchen table, the same kitchen table, and held her hand and told her, gently, that he wasn't a match. That date was 11 months ago, which meant either the file was wrong, or he'd never been tested at all. Bella sat very still, the glow of the laptop the only light in the room, and thought about every time over the last 11 months she'd told someone, his parents, her coworkers, herself, it's okay, Daniel tried, it just wasn't meant to be. These things happen. She'd defended a lie. For almost a year. To everyone, including herself. Her phone buzzed. Youngwook, you good? You've gone quiet. She stared at the message for a long moment before she typed back. Bella, can I ask you something tomorrow? In person. Youngwook, of course. Everything okay? Bella, I don't know yet. That's kind of the point. He came by earlier than usual the next morning, and Bella noticed, for the first time, really noticed, the way his expression shifted the moment he saw her face. Not pity. Just attention. Like he was recalibrating, adjusting to whatever weather was coming. What's going on? He asked, before he'd even fully closed the door. Bella turned her laptop around so he could see the screen, the donor registry, the dates, the gap between what she'd been told and what the record said. He read it slowly. She watched his jaw tighten. 14 months, he said quietly. And he told you he tested 11 months ago. Yes. So either the hospital's records are wrong, Bella said, or my husband has spent the last 11 months pretending to be tested for a procedure that could save my life, and never actually was. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Bella. Youngwook's voice was careful now, gentler than she'd heard it. I have to ask. Do you want to know the answer? Because once you know, really know, there's no going back from that. Bella looked at the rabbit still sitting on her couch. At the soup container in the fridge with his handwriting on it. Eat this. Don't argue. At 3 days of someone showing up just to make sure she wasn't alone. I already know the answer, she said quietly. I think I've known for longer than I want to admit. I just need to stop pretending I don't. Youngwook didn't say anything else. He just sat down beside her, close enough that his shoulder was a steady warmth against hers, and didn't move for a long time. Daniel came home that evening to find Bella sitting at the kitchen table, laptop closed in front of her, hands folded. Waiting. Hey. He dropped his keys in the bowl by the door, loosening his tie. You're up. Feeling better. I want to ask you something. Something in her tone made him pause, just slightly, just for a second, the kind of pause Bella might not have noticed 3 days ago. Now she saw everything. Sure. What's up? The bone marrow test. The one you took last year. Bella kept her voice even, almost gentle. When exactly did you take it? Daniel's hand stilled on his tie. Why are you asking about that now? I'm just curious. Humor me. It was, he exhaled, like the question itself was tiring. I don't know, Bells, it was almost a year ago. Why does it matter? You know I wasn't a match. We've been over this. Bells. She hadn't noticed before how easily the nickname came to him, how automatic it was, how little it cost him. Youngwook had never called her that. Youngwook called her Bella, full and careful, like the name itself mattered. The registry shows no donor on file. Ever. Not 11 months ago, not now. Hospitals lose paperwork all the time, you know that. Okay, Bella said, and let it go. Too easily, maybe, but it wasn't actually the question she'd come here to ask. It had just been the door she'd needed to walk through first, to see how far he'd bend before he broke. She'd thought that would be the hard part. It wasn't. I want to ask you something else. She kept her voice steady, though her hands, folded in her lap, had gone cold. The day I was at the hospital, I saw you, coming out of the pregnancy ward, with Vivian. Daniel's face didn't change immediately, but something behind it did. A held breath. A recalculation. Bella, that's not. Is she pregnant? No. I mean, he ran a hand through his hair, and for a moment he looked almost relieved, like he'd been bracing for a harder question than this one. It's not what it looked like. Is she pregnant, Daniel? The silence answered before he did. Bella, is the baby yours? He didn't say anything for a long moment. And then, quietly, like setting down something heavy he'd been carrying too long. Yes. The word landed in the kitchen and just sat there. Bella found, almost distantly, that she wasn't surprised. Some part of her had known the moment she'd seen the scan in his hands, the way his face had looked. She'd just needed to hear him say it. How long, she asked. Bella, it's not. How long, Daniel? A while. He said it like a confession dragged out of him by exhaustion more than guilt. It's not. It wasn't supposed to turn into this. It just did. Bella sat very still. 3 years, she said. 3 years I've been making excuses for you. To your parents. To my coworkers. To myself. Every birthday, every anniversary you missed because Vivian had an emergency. I defended that. I told people you two were just close, that it wasn't anything, that I trusted you. You should trust me. Daniel's voice sharpened, suddenly, the apology evaporating into something else, something almost indignant. Bella, listen to me. You're sick. You have been for years. And I need an heir. The company needs an heir. My parents need a grandchild, and you, he stopped himself, but not soon enough. Say it, Bella said quietly. You know what I mean. Say it, Daniel. You can't give me that. His voice was flat now. Tired. Like he was the one being unreasonable about, finally allowed to stop pretending. Not in your condition. You know that. I know that. The doctors know that. So Vivian is doing us a favor. That's all this is. She's giving us what you can't. The kitchen was utterly silent. Us, Bella repeated. Bella. There is no us in this, Daniel. Her voice didn't shake. She was almost surprised by that. There's you, and there's her, and there's a baby, and there's me, over here, sick, being told I should be grateful someone else is doing me a favor. That's not, he took a breath, visibly trying to recover ground. I didn't mean it like that. I just meant, Bella, you're tired. You're not thinking clearly. Let's not do this tonight, okay? We can talk about this when you're feeling better. He reached for her hand, that same gentle grip, thumb already moving, and Bella stood up before he could touch her. I need to go, she said. Go where? Bella, it's late. She was already walking toward the door, pulling her coat from the hook, her hands trembling now in a way they hadn't been a moment ago. She needed to be anywhere that wasn't this kitchen. Anywhere that wasn't him. Bella. The door closed behind her before he finished. She stood outside in the cold for a long moment before she even thought to call anyone. Her first instinct, 3 years of instinct, was to call Daniel's driver, or a cab, or just walk until she felt steadier. Instead, without quite deciding to, she found herself dialing Youngwook. He picked up on the second ring. Bella? Can you? Her voice cracked, and she hated that it did. Can you come get me? I know it's late. I know I don't know who else to call. Where are you? Outside. My building. I just need. I'm coming. Stay where you are. Don't walk anywhere, okay? I'm 15 minutes out. He was there in 12. He didn't ask what happened, not right away. He just took one look at her face, got out, and opened the passenger door without a word, and Bella climbed in and stared straight ahead while he pulled away from the curb. I'm sorry, she said eventually, once the shaking in her hands had mostly stopped. For calling so late. I don't even know what we are, really. Friends, I guess, if that. And Bella. His voice was even, steady, cutting gently through the spiral. It's fine. It's not nothing, though. I just dumped a hole, I don't even know what that was, on you, at 11 at night. Bella. He glanced at her, just briefly, eyes back on the road. It's fine. I mean it. You don't have to apologize for needing somewhere to go. A small pause. I'd rather you call me at 11 at night than not call anyone at all. She didn't say anything to that. Couldn't, really, her throat was too tight. He didn't push for more. He just drove. His apartment was smaller than she expected, and warmer, lived in, a little messy in the way of someone who was rarely home long enough to tidy. He showed her to a spare room without making a production of it, pulled out clean sheets, set a glass of water on the nightstand like it was the most normal thing in the world. Bathrooms down the hall. There's a spare toothbrush in the cabinet, still in the box. Don't ask me why I have that. He paused at the door. You don't have to talk about it tonight. Or ever, if you don't want to. But, if you want to, I'm right down the hall. Thank you, Bella said, and it came out smaller than she meant it to. For not asking. You'll tell me when you're ready. Or you won't, and that's fine too. He lingered another second. Get some sleep, Bella. He left, and pulled the door almost closed behind him, and Bella sat on the edge of the unfamiliar bed in the dark and finally let herself cry. Not the panicked, blind tears from the hospital hallway, but something quieter. Something like grief for a version of her life she'd already, somewhere along the way, stopped expecting to keep. Her phone rang twice that night. She let it go to voicemail both times. The text came after. Daniel, you're being dramatic. You know you can't carry a child in your condition. It's not like I'm choosing her over you, it's just biology. Come home, Bella. We can talk about this like adults. Bella read it twice in the dark. Then she turned the phone face down on the nightstand, and didn't pick it up again. She woke to the smell of coffee and the quiet sounds of someone trying very hard to move around an apartment without making noise, and failing slightly. Youngwook was in the kitchen when she came out, hair still damp, 2 mugs already poured. He glanced at her, really looked, the way he always did, and didn't ask how she'd slept. He could probably see the answer on her face. You don't have to go back there, he said simply, sliding a mug toward her. Whatever you need to figure out, you can figure it out from here. Or wherever. But not there. Not if you don't want to. Bella wrapped both hands around the mug, grateful for the warmth. He texted last night. Said I was being dramatic. Said it's just, her voice caught, just slightly, biology. Youngwook's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything cruel about Daniel, didn't pile on. Just let the silence acknowledge how ugly that word was, sitting there. I want a divorce, Bella said. Quietly. Like saying it out loud might make it smaller, easier to hold. It didn't. But it also didn't feel like a question anymore. It felt like the only sentence that had ever made complete sense to her in days. I don't think I can keep pretending I don't know what I know. Not after last night. Youngwook nodded slowly. Okay. Just okay? No, are you sure? No, think about it. Bella. He set his mug down. You've spent 3 years making excuses for a man who just told you, to your face, that another woman is doing him a favor by carrying his child because you're too sick to be useful. His voice stayed even, but something underneath it had gone hard. I'm not going to ask if you're sure. I'm going to ask what you need, and then I'm going to help you get it. Bella looked at him for a long moment, at the steadiness of him, the complete absence of performance, and felt something settle in her chest for the first time in days. I need a lawyer, she said. And I need to not do this alone. Then you've got both. It took her 4 days to find a lawyer she trusted, and another 2 to have the papers drawn up properly, clean, simple, no accusations written into the language, nothing that could be twisted later. Youngwook had offered to come with her to the lawyer's office. She'd told him no, gently, and he hadn't pushed, though he'd texted her the entire time she was inside. A steady stream of nonsense. How's it going? Still alive in there? Do lawyers offer snacks? This seems like a snack offering kind of meeting. That she suspected was less about the questions and more about making sure she didn't feel alone in the waiting. She chose a Sunday morning to serve them. Daniel was home, unhurried, drinking coffee at the counter in the soft gray light, and for a moment, just a moment, Bella let herself remember what 3 years of mornings like this had felt like, before she'd learned to see past them. Then she set the folder down in front of him. What's this? Divorce papers. Daniel looked at the folder like it might be a joke. Then he looked at her face and understood it wasn't. Bella, I've already signed my half. My lawyer's contact is on the first page if yours has questions. Her voice was calm. Steady. She'd practiced this in her head more times than she wanted to admit, and now that it was happening, it felt almost anticlimactic, like the moment had already happened days ago, in her chest, and this was just paperwork catching up. You can't be serious. He stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. Bella, this is about Vivian, isn't it? I told you. It's not what you think. It doesn't change what we. There's no version of this where it's not what I think, Daniel. Bella kept her tone even, though something in her chest pulled tight. You told me, to my face, that she's having your child because I'm too sick to be worth anything to you anymore. I don't need you to explain that differently. I heard you the first time. You know what this means, he said quietly. Financially. For both of us. I know what it means. Half of everything, Bella. The house. The investments. My share in the company. I know, she said again, and this time there was something almost gentle in it, not for him, but for herself, for the version of herself who might once have been swayed by that, who might have stayed quiet to avoid exactly this conversation. I helped build that company too, Daniel. I think I'm entitled to what's mine. He didn't say anything else. He just stood there, holding the folder, staring at it like it might rearrange itself into something less permanent if he looked hard enough. Bella walked to the bedroom, pulled out the bag she'd packed 2 nights ago. She hadn't told him that part yet either, and set it by the door. I'm staying with a friend for a while. Until we sort out the house. She paused at the door, and for a moment, the old habit nearly won. Take care of yourself, eat something, don't work too late. 3 years of automatic care that didn't just disappear because the feeling behind it had. She didn't say any of it. Goodbye, Daniel. She was 3 blocks away, sitting in the back of a cab with her bag beside her, when her phone buzzed. Youngwook, how'd it go? Bella, done. He has the papers. Youngwook, and you? Are you okay? Bella looked out the window, at the city sliding by, gray and ordinary, completely unaware that her entire life had just changed shape, and found, to her surprise, that the tightness in her chest had eased. Not gone, but lighter. Like she'd been holding her breath for 3 years, and had only just now remembered how to exhale. Bella, I think I actually am. Youngwook, good. Youngwook, for what it's worth, for someone who just blew up their entire life in one morning, you sound remarkably calm. Bella, I think I ran out of feelings about it days ago. This is just the paperwork version of something I already grieved. Youngwook, that's either very healthy or extremely concerning. I can't tell which. Bella, probably both. Across the city, in the apartment she'd just left, Daniel sat alone at the kitchen counter for a long time before he picked up his phone. He didn't call his lawyer. He called Vivian. She knows everything, he said, the moment the call connected, his voice low, urgent. About you. About the baby. She filed for divorce, Vivian. This morning. It's done. She already signed her half. There was a pause on the other end. Then, quiet, careful, okay? Okay, don't panic. We'll figure this out. We always do. This is different. Daniel ran a hand over his face. If this goes the way she wants it to, I lose half of everything. The house. The company shares. Everything we've. I said don't panic. Vivian's voice hardened, steady in a way his wasn't. We have time. She won't move fast, she never does. And if she does. A pause, calculating. Then we make sure people see things the way we need them to see them. Daniel closed his eyes. I never wanted it to get this far, he said quietly. I know, Vivian said. But it did. So now we deal with it. The first morning, Bella offered to start looking for her own place. She said it almost apologetically, standing in Youngwook's kitchen in borrowed pajama pants that were several sizes too big, rolled twice at the waist. There's no rush, Youngwook said, not looking up from the pan he was scrambling eggs in. I don't want to impose. You've already done so much, and I don't want to be the friend who never leaves. You're not imposing. A beat. Also, you can't really go apartment hunting right now. Doctor's orders. Bed rest, remember? Technically you're supposed to be lying down right now, not standing in my kitchen judging my eggs. I'm not judging your eggs. You're judging my eggs. I can feel it. He slid a plate toward her anyway. Eat first. Apartment hunting can wait until you're, allowed to leave a bed. She ate. And the apartment hunting, somehow, didn't come up again that day. By the third day, Bella noticed the pattern, though she didn't say anything about it. Not yet, mostly because she wasn't sure she wanted it to stop. Every time she mentioned looking for a place, Youngwook found a reason it wasn't quite the right moment. I found a listing near my office, she said on day 3, scrolling through her phone from the couch. Looks decent. I could go see it this weekend. This weekend's bad, Youngwook said immediately, from the kitchen, where he was, for reasons Bella couldn't determine, reorganizing a cabinet that did not appear to need reorganizing. Seon's coming by. She'll want to meet you. It'll be chaos if you're not here. She'll just show up at whatever new place you found and make it weird. That seems like an argument for me leaving before she comes, not after. No, it's worse that way. Trust me. He didn't look at her when he said it, which was, Bella was beginning to learn, usually a sign that he knew exactly how flimsy his own logic was and was daring her to call it out. She didn't call it out. She just smiled into her tea and let it go. On day 5, she tried again, more seriously this time, an actual viewing scheduled, an actual time. Youngwook came home from work to find her getting ready to leave, and something in his face shifted, just slightly, before he caught it. You're going now? It's a good listing. Close to the hospital, which the doctor said matters. She pulled on her coat. I'll be back in an hour. Want company? Youngwook, you just got home. You don't have to. I want to. He was already grabbing his keys. 2 opinions are better than 1. What if the landlord's weird? You need a second person to make eye contact with meaningfully if the landlord's weird. The apartment, when they saw it, was fine. Clean, reasonably priced, a 10-minute drive from the hospital. Youngwook found something wrong with every single room. The kitchen's small, he said, standing in a kitchen that was, by any reasonable measure, a completely normal size. It's fine, Youngwook. The light's weird in here. In the bedroom, which had a large window facing east, currently flooding the room with late afternoon sun. Too bright in the mornings. Bad for sleep. That's not really how light works. And this, he gestured vaguely at the hallway, is just, structurally, I don't love it. The landlord, increasingly bewildered, glanced between them like he was watching a tennis match he didn't understand the rules of. In the car afterward, Bella turned to look at him, arms crossed, fighting a smile she didn't entirely succeed at hiding. The hallway. Structurally. You don't love it. It had bad energy. It was a hallway, Youngwook. Hallways can have bad energy. I don't make the rules. He kept his eyes very firmly on the road, the corner of his mouth twitching. Anyway, plenty of other apartments out there. No rush. You keep saying that. Because it keeps being true. Bella looked out the window, hiding her smile properly this time, and didn't push it any further. Some part of her, a part she wasn't ready to examine too closely yet, didn't actually want to find anywhere else to be. That evening, Seon did, in fact, show up, letting herself in with a key Bella hadn't known existed, dropping a bag of takeout on the counter, and stopping dead the moment she spotted Bella curled up on the couch under a blanket that was very obviously Youngwook's. Oh my god. Soohyun's eyes went wide, darting between Bella and her brother, who had frozen halfway through pouring water like he'd been caught doing something illegal. Oh my god. You're real. He wasn't lying. There's an actual woman in Appa's apartment. Soohyun. Hi, Soohyun said to Bella, ignoring her brother entirely, dropping onto the couch beside her with the easy familiarity of someone who'd decided, on sight, that they were going to be friends. I'm Soohyun. I've heard nothing about you, which honestly tells me everything, because my brother only goes quiet about things that actually matter to him. Soohyun, can you not? I'm Bella. Bella, charmed despite herself, shook the offered hand. He's mentioned you. The menace comment was accurate. See? Soohyun turned triumphantly back to Youngwook. She gets it already. I like her. She's staying, right? Please tell me she's staying. She's recovering, Youngwook said, a little too quickly, setting the water down harder than necessary. It's temporary. Sure. Soohyun's grin was pure mischief, and she didn't look away from her brother for a long moment, long enough that something passed between them, something Bella couldn't quite read but could tell mattered. Temporary. Got it. She turned back to Bella, instantly bright again, already reaching for the takeout bag. Anyway, I brought enough food for 3 people because I assumed he'd forget to feed you properly. Did he forget to feed you properly? He's actually been very. Don't defend him, it ruins the bit. Soohyun was already dividing containers onto the coffee table with practiced efficiency. So, Bella, tell me everything. And by everything I mean specifically, how long has my brother been like this? Because I need to know if this is a new development or if he's just been hiding an entire personality from our family for years. Soohyun. I'm asking for research purposes. Bella laughed, really laughed, for what felt like the first time in days, and caught, just at the edge of her vision, the small, helpless look on Youngwook's face. Not annoyance. Something closer to relief. Like watching 2 people he cared about get along was its own kind of quiet miracle. Later, after Soohyun left, with a hug for Bella and a pointed look for her brother that needed no translation, Bella found Youngwook in the kitchen, washing up. Your sister's right, you know, she said, drawing a plate he handed her. About the apartment thing. He didn't look up. What apartment thing? The hallway with bad energy. The light that's somehow too bright. The fact that every place I look at this week happens to have a fatal flaw only you can see. She set the plate down. You don't actually want me to leave, do you? The water shut off. For a moment, Youngwook just stood there, hands braced on the edge of the sink, not turning around. No, he admitted, finally. Quiet. Honest, in a way that cost him something to say out loud. I don't. Bella didn't say anything. She didn't need to. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, it was just full, in the way silences sometimes are right before something shifts. You don't have to find anywhere else to go, Youngwook said, still not quite turning around. Not yet. Not until you're ready. There's no rush, Bella. I meant that. I'll keep meaning it for as long as you need. Okay, Bella said softly. And for the first time since this all started, she meant it completely. Daniel sat across from his parents in the home he'd grown up in, hands wrapped around a cup of tea he wasn't drinking, and let the silence stretch just long enough to look like grief. She filed for divorce, he said finally. Last week. Sarah's hand went to her chest. What? Why? Daniel, what happened? I don't fully understand it myself. He shook his head slowly, like a man genuinely struggling to make sense of something painful. She's been different lately. Distant. And then a few weeks ago she started spending time with someone. Some man she met at the hospital, of all places. He let that sit. She's been staying at his apartment. For days now. Gabriel's expression darkened. What man? I don't know much about him. Tattoos. Older than her, I think, works in some kind of import business, from what I gathered. Daniel's voice was careful, measured, every word landing exactly where he wanted it to. I tried to talk to her. I really did. But she'd already made up her mind. By the time the papers showed up, she'd basically already moved in with him. That doesn't sound like Bella, Sarah said quietly, but there was already a crack of doubt in her voice, the kind that came from loving someone for years and being confronted with a version of them that didn't fit, and not knowing which version to trust. I know. Daniel's voice cracked, just slightly, a small, controlled thing, the kind of detail that made a lie breathe. I keep thinking that too. But, Mom, Dad, I have to be honest with you, because I think you'll hear about it eventually anyway, and I'd rather you hear it from me first. He took a slow breath. She's not just leaving me for him. She's also asking for half of everything. The house. My shares in the company. The room went very quiet. After everything we did for her, Gabriel said slowly. Her education. Bringing her into the company. Treating her like our own daughter. I know, Daniel said again, softer this time, letting the silence do the rest of the work for him. 3 days later, Bella's phone rang. Sarah's name on the screen. She almost let it go to voicemail, some old instinct, bracing for a conversation she wasn't ready to have. But Sarah had never once, in 3 years, called her without reason, and ignoring her now felt like its own kind of cruelty. Hello, Bella. Sarah's voice was careful, not cold, exactly, but guarded in a way Bella had never heard from her before. Can you come by the house? Gabriel and I would like to talk to you. In person. Of course, Bella said, though something in her chest had already gone tight. Is everything okay? A pause. We'll talk when you get here. The house was the same as it had always been, warm, familiar, the smell of Sarah's cooking still lingering from earlier, but the moment Bella stepped inside, she felt the difference immediately. Sarah didn't hug her. Gabriel didn't look up right away. Sit down, please, Sarah said. Bella sat. Waited. Daniel told us about the divorce, Gabriel said finally, his voice heavy. And about the circumstances. What circumstances? Bella asked carefully, though some part of her already knew where this was going. He said you've been seeing someone, Sarah said. That you've been staying with him. For days. She hesitated, and Bella watched the struggle on her face, the visible effort of a woman trying to reconcile what she was hearing with 3 years of knowing someone. He said you're also asking for half of everything. The house. His shares. For a moment, Bella just sat there, absorbing it, the sheer architecture of it, how neatly Daniel had built a version of events that was almost entirely true in its details and completely false in its meaning. I am staying with someone, Bella said slowly. His name is Youngwook. He's been helping me. I got sick, badly, a few weeks ago, and he was the one who found me when I collapsed at the hospital. He's been letting me stay with him while I recover. There's nothing else to it. Not yet. Anyway, and even if there were, it wouldn't change why I'm divorcing your son. Bella, Sarah started, but Bella kept going gently, steadily. Did he tell you why I'm divorcing him? Silence. Did he tell you about Vivian? Sarah's face changed, confusion first, then something colder. What about Vivian? She's pregnant. With Daniel's child. Bella kept her voice even, though it cost her something to say it out loud. Here, in this house, to these people who had been kinder to her than her own family had been in years. It's been going on for a while. Years, maybe. He told me himself that she's doing us a favor because I'm too sick to give him an heir. The room went absolutely still. That's not, Gabriel started and stopped. Looked at his wife. Something passed between them, the specific, terrible recognition of two people realizing, in real time, that they'd been told a story designed to be believed. He told us you were the one who, Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper now. I know what he told you, Bella said quietly. I'm not asking you to believe me over him just because. I know that's not fair to ask. But I'd encourage you to ask him directly, about Vivian, about the baby, about how long it's been going on. I think you'll find the answers don't match what he told you. Gabriel was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was rougher than before. And the company shares. The half you're asking for. I helped grow that company for 3 years, Gabriel. Bella met his eyes steadily. Every strategy deck, every investor meeting, every late night, that was real, even if nothing else was. I'm not asking for anything I didn't help build. But if it would make this easier for everyone, I'd be willing to discuss the terms. I'm not trying to destroy anyone. I just don't want to be lied to anymore. Sarah reached out, then hesitant, like she wasn't sure if the gesture would be welcome, and took Bella's hand. "We're so sorry," she said, and her voice broke on it. "We should have asked more questions. She shook her head. He's our son. We wanted to believe him." "I know," Bella said gently. "I wanted to believe him too. For 3 years." That evening, Bella sat in Youngwook's living room, staring at her phone, replaying the conversation. "How'd it go?" he asked, settling beside her with 2 mugs of tea. "They believed him at first," Bella said quietly. "He told them I was the one who cheated. That I'm taking half of everything out of spite." She shook her head slowly. "And the worst part is, it almost worked. If I hadn't told them about Vivian, they would have believed every word of it." Youngwook's jaw tightened. "He's already starting then." "Starting what?" "Building his version of events. Getting ahead of it." Youngwook set his mug down, expression turning serious in a way Bella hadn't quite seen before, focused, almost protective. "Bella, if he's already telling his parents you're the one in the wrong here, he's not going to stop there. People like that don't just retreat quietly. He's going to need a story that makes him the victim, and the company's investors, the board, anyone who matters to him professionally, he'll tell them the same story or some version of it." Bella felt something cold settle in her stomach. "You think he'll try to make it look like I'm the one who—" "I think," Youngwook said carefully, "that we should make sure you have more than just his parents' word that he's lying. Because his parents believing you is good. But if this goes anywhere near a courtroom, or the board, or the press, you're going to need proof. Not just truth. Proof." Bella looked at him for a long moment. "You really think it'll get that far?" "I think," Youngwook said, "that a man who's been lying for years doesn't stop because he got caught once. He just gets better at lying." He reached over, took her hand, careful, the way he always was, like he was asking permission with the gesture itself. "So let's make sure that when he tries it again, you're ready." It started with a phone call from a coworker, casual, almost apologetic. "Hey, Bella, not trying to start anything, but have you seen this?" A link. Bella clicked it before she'd even finished bracing herself. A gossip blog. Grainy photos, clearly taken from across the street, clearly taken without either of them knowing, Bella and Youngwook leaving a restaurant. His hand at the small of her back, guiding her around a puddle. Bella laughing at something, her head tipped back. Innocuous, in isolation. Anyone could look at it and see 2 friends out for dinner. The headline didn't see it that way. Lawson heiress secret romance, tattooed mystery man spotted days after divorce filing. Sources say affair predates split. Bella's stomach dropped. "Sources," she read aloud, flat. "What sources?" She scrolled. The article was vague in all the ways that mattered and specific in all the ways that hurt. Insiders close to the family say the relationship had been ongoing for some time. Mr. Lawson, devastated by the betrayal, has declined to comment. The timing of the divorce filing has raised questions among those close to the couple. Every single line was technically true and entirely, deliberately wrong. By the time she got to the office, it had already spread. She could feel it the moment she walked in, the way conversations paused half a beat too long, the way a few people wouldn't quite meet her eyes, the particular quality of silence that meant everyone already knew and no one wanted to be the one to bring it up. Her assistant, Mira, intercepted her before she'd even reached her desk, voice low. "Bella, there's a board meeting in 20 minutes. They added it this morning. You're not on the agenda, but they want to talk about me anyway." Myra's wince was answer enough. The boardroom was tense in a way Bella had never experienced in 3 years of sitting in it. A few of the older board members, men who'd known her since she was 23 years old and terrified in her first investor meeting, wouldn't look at her directly. Others did, and their expressions were worse. "Bella." The chairman, Mr. Choi, cleared his throat. "We wanted to discuss, given recent developments, whether it might be prudent for you to step back from client-facing responsibilities for a while. Just until things settle." "Step back," Bella repeated. Temporarily, someone else added quickly. It's not a reflection of your work. Your work has always been exemplary. It's just optics, Bella. The Hanwoo deal alone is worth. I know what the Hanwoo deal is worth. I'm the one who built the relationship with their team. Bella kept her voice level, though her hands, folded in her lap, had gone white-knuckled. Can I ask what exactly the concern is? Specifically. Silence. There's an article, Mr. Choi said carefully, suggesting the relationship, the one in the photos, predates your divorce filing. If that were true, and it came out during negotiations. It's not true. We understand that's what you're saying. It's not a matter of what I'm saying. It's true. Bella looked around the table, at faces she'd spent 3 years earning the respect of, watching most of them avoid her eyes. I met Youngwook the day I found out my husband had been lying to me about a bone marrow donor match for almost a year. The same day I found out his best friend is pregnant with his child. I collapsed in a hospital hallway and a stranger caught me. That's the entire unglamorous truth of how I met him. A few board members exchanged glances. I understand how this looks, Bella continued, quieter now. I understand that a photo of 2 people leaving a restaurant with the right headline attached can look like whatever someone wants it to look like. But I'd ask you to consider who benefits from this story. Who released it? Because it certainly wasn't me. After the meeting, which ended without a decision, which was its own kind of answer, Bella sat in her office with the door closed and called Jungwook. They saw the photos, she said, the moment he picked up the board. There's already a story. Apparently the affair predates the divorce. She let out a breath that was half laugh, half something else entirely. They wanted me to step back from client work. Temporarily. Bella. His voice was tight. Are you okay? I'm furious, Bella said, and it came out steadier than she expected. I'm furious, and I'm scared, and I'm Youngwook. He didn't even wait a week. He went straight to the board. To the press. He's trying to take my work from me too, on top of everything else. He won't get it. Youngwook's voice had gone hard in a way she hadn't heard before, not loud, but absolutely certain. Bella, listen to me. We're going to need everything. Every piece of it, Vivian, the pregnancy, how long it's been going on, any paper trail at all. Not because I think you need to prove anything to those people in that boardroom. A pause. But because I think he's going to keep doing this. Getting louder. And the only way to make it stop is to make sure that when he does, the truth is louder. Bella closed her eyes, leaning back in her chair, the weight of the day pressing down all at once. Where do we even start? We start, Youngwook said, with Vivian. They didn't start with Vivian directly, not at first. Youngwook was careful about that, methodical in a way that surprised Bella, like this wasn't the first time he'd had to build a case out of scattered pieces. If we go to her first, she'll warn Daniel, he said, spreading printouts across his kitchen table, bank statements, property records, things Bella hadn't even known were possible to access so easily. We need to know what we're looking for before we ask anyone anything. How do you even know how to do this? Family business, Youngwook said, in a tone that suggested the topic was closed for now, though not unkindly. Let's just say I've had to clean up after people who thought they were smarter than the paper trail before. People rarely are. The first thread was an apartment. Bella recognized the building the moment she saw the address on the property record, a sleek high-rise not far from the office, the kind of place junior staff joked about being able to see from their desks and never afford. The lease had been signed 18 months ago. The name on the lease wasn't Daniel's. It was a holding company. One Bella had never heard of, until she cross-referenced it against old investor documents and found it buried in a footnote, 3 years back, listed as a minor shareholder entity Daniel had set up for tax structuring purposes. That's the apartment, Bella said slowly, staring at the address. That's where she lives. I drove past it 100 times. I never, she shook her head. He's been paying for it. Through the company. For a year and a half. Using company funds? Youngwook leaned over to look. Bella, if that's true, that's not just personal misconduct anymore. That's the board's money. That's something they'd actually have to act on. The second thread took longer. 3 days of Youngwook quietly making calls Bella didn't ask too many questions about until he came back with something that made his jaw tighten in a way she'd learned to recognize. "The hospital," he said. "The day you found out about the donor registry being empty." I asked around. Carefully. He set his phone down. "The nurse who congratulated you, the one who looked terrified afterward, she's not on staff anymore. Resigned, 2 days after you were discharged. No notice. No forwarding information. You think she was paid to leave?" "I think," Youngwook said carefully, "that someone made sure she wouldn't be around to accidentally say the wrong thing to the wrong person twice." Bella sat back, something cold settling over her. So the doctor lied. The registry was real. There really was no donor, but someone made sure I wouldn't find out how I found out. They got rid of the only person who'd slipped. Which means, Youngwook said slowly, someone with enough money and reach to make a hospital employee disappear quietly was protecting that lie. That's not just Daniel covering his own tracks anymore, Bella. That's someone with serious resources making sure a story stayed buried. Neither of them said Gabriel's name. But it sat in the room between them anyway, the uncomfortable possibility that this went higher than just Daniel, even if neither of them wanted it to be true. The third thread was the one that finally connected everything, and it came, unexpectedly, from Mira. Bella's assistant showed up at Youngwook's apartment 2 evenings later, nervous, clutching a folder like it might bite her. "I probably shouldn't have this," Mira said, the moment Bella opened the door. "But I've been with the company for 6 years, Bella, and you've always treated me like a person, not just an assistant. And when I saw what they were saying about you, She held out the folder. "I started keeping copies. A while ago. I didn't know why at the time. I think some part of me always knew something was off." Inside were travel records. Years of them, corporate trip itineraries, expense reports, hotel bookings. On the surface, mundane. Routine business travel, the kind any executive's assistant would process without a second thought. Except every single trip Daniel had taken for the Junho account over the last 2 years had a second room booked. Same dates. Same hotels. Different floor. Booked under Vivian's name. "The Junho account doesn't exist," Bella said quietly, staring at the pages. "Or it exists, but it's tiny. A small regional client. It would never justify 2 years of repeated urgent trips." She looked up at Mira. "This is every excuse. Every anniversary, every birthday he missed because of an emergency with this account. It was never an emergency. It was just, she couldn't finish the sentence. It was a cover story," Youngwook said quietly. "For years." By the end of the night, they had it laid out across the table, the apartment paid for with company funds, the years of travel records, the hospital records, the donor registry gap, even the photos from the gossip blog. Now reframed as evidence of exactly how far Daniel was willing to go to protect the story he'd built. Bella sat staring at all of it, 3 years of her life, laid out in paper and dates and quiet, careful lies, and felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Not just anger. Relief. "It's not just my word anymore," she said softly. "It's not he said, she said. It's just true. All of it. Documented." "It's true," Youngwook agreed. "It always was. Now it's just impossible to argue with." He reached over, gently tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, a small gesture, almost absent, the kind of thing he might not even have noticed himself doing. Bella noticed. She noticed everything about him lately, in a way that scared her a little, given everything else going on. "You okay?" he asked, voice softer now. "I will be," Bella said. And for the first time, she actually believed it. Bella didn't go to Daniel. She didn't go to Sarah and Gabriel either, not first. She went to her lawyer. "I want to be careful about this," she said, laying everything out across the conference table, the lease, the travel records, the hospital timeline. "I'm not interested in destroying him for the sake of it. But I am interested in making sure no one can call me a liar again. Quietly or otherwise." Her lawyer studied the documents for a long moment, then looked up. "Bella, some of this isn't just relevant to your divorce. The misuse of company funds for that apartment, the falsified registry. If this became public or reached the board through the right channels, it wouldn't just be your word against his anymore. It would be a corporate governance issue. Possibly a legal one, separate from the marriage entirely. I know, Bella said quietly. That's rather the point. It moved faster than she expected. A formal complaint, filed with the board through legal counsel, careful, documented, every claim backed by paper. Within it, by necessity, the full picture, the affair, the pregnancy, the falsified test, the misallocated funds, the disappeared nurse. Not a tabloid story this time. A filing. The kind that came with exhibits and dates and couldn't be waved away as gossip. It reached the board on a Wednesday morning. By Wednesday afternoon, someone, Bella never found out who, though she suspected it was someone on the board who'd grown tired of being lied to, had leaked it to the press. By Wednesday evening, it was everywhere. Lawson Group heir accused of misappropriating company funds to support years-long affair. Wife's legal filing alleges falsified medical records cover-up. This time, there were no vague sources. There were documents. Screenshots of the lease. Photographs of the building. A timeline, laid out cleanly, that left very little room for interpretation. Sarah called before Bella had even finished reading the article herself. Is it true? Sarah's voice was shaking, not with anger, but with something raw. All of it? The apartment, the company money. Bella, please, just tell me if it's true. It's true, Bella said gently. I'm sorry you're finding out this way. I didn't release it to the press. I filed it with the board, through my lawyer, because I needed it on record. I didn't know it would end up in the news. There was a long silence on the other end. He used company funds. Gabriel's voice came through now low, controlled in a way that was somehow worse than shouting. Company funds. For an apartment. For her. A pause. For 18 months, while his mother and I sat across from him at dinner and asked how you were doing, and he told us you were stressed, that you needed space. Gabriel. No. His voice cracked, just slightly. No, Bella, I need to say this. We chose to believe our son. Over you. After everything, after you helped build half of what he's been stealing from. A long breath. I am so sorry. I don't know what else to say. We were wrong. About all of it. Bella closed her eyes, throat tight. You didn't know. We should have asked better questions, Sarah said quietly. We're so sorry, Bella. For all of it. Across the city, Daniel found out the way most of the city did, from his phone, buzzing relentlessly on his desk, notification after notification, until he finally looked down and saw his own name in a headline that wasn't the kind he was used to seeing. He read it once. Then again, faster, like rereading it might change what it said. His phone rang. The chairman's office. He didn't answer. It rang again. And again. By the fourth call, he finally picked up, and the voice on the other end wasn't the chairman's assistant this time. It was Mr. Choi himself, and his tone left no room for negotiation. Daniel. We need you in the building. Now. I can explain. You'll have the opportunity, Mr. Choi said, in front of the board. This afternoon. I'd suggest you bring your lawyer. The line went dead. Daniel sat very still at his desk for a long moment, staring at the headlines still glowing on his screen, at the photo of the apartment building, at the timeline laid out in clean, undeniable print, and for the first time since this had all started, he understood, completely, that there was no version of this he could talk his way out of. He picked up his phone again. Called Vivian. She didn't answer. He called again. And again. By the fifth call, a message came through instead, short, final, nothing like the steady, calculating voice he'd relied on for years. Vivian, I'm not going down with you, Daniel. I'm sorry. I have to think about the baby now. Daniel stared at the message for a long time. Then he set the phone down, very gently, on the desk, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he had absolutely no idea what to do next. Bella was halfway through her coffee, reviewing notes before a client call, when she looked up and found Daniel standing on the other side of the cafe table. He looked different. Thinner, somehow, in the week since the story had broken, the kind of thinness that came from not sleeping, not from anything healthy. His usual polish was gone, his tie was loose, his eyes red-rimmed in a way she'd never seen on him before, not even at his most exhausted during their marriage. "Can I sit?" he asked. Quiet. None of his usual ease. Bella considered telling him no. But the cafe was crowded, public, and some part of her, the part that had spent 3 years learning to read him, could tell this wasn't a performance. Not entirely. 5 minutes, she said. He sat. For a moment, he just looked at her, really looked, in a way that felt almost unfamiliar, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time in years and didn't know what to do with what he saw. "I signed the papers," he said finally. "This morning. It's done. The board's already moving on the rest, the funds, all of it." "I'm not," he exhaled shakily. "I'm not going to fight any of it. I just wanted to say some things to you first. While I still could." "Okay," Bella said carefully. "I know how this looks." His hands were laced together on the table, knuckles white. "I know what I did. I'm not going to pretend otherwise, not anymore. There's no point. But Bella, I need you to understand, I never stopped loving you. Not once. Not for a single day of any of this." Bella didn't say anything. Just watched him. "The bone marrow thing, the test, that wasn't me trying to hurt you. I was scared. You were so sick, Bella, and I didn't know what to do, and Vivian," his voice caught on her name, something complicated crossing his face. "Vivian said, she said if you had something else to focus on. A child. Something to look forward to, something that wasn't just doctors and bad news all the time, that it might help. Give you something to live for. I told myself that's what it was. That I was doing it for you somehow. I know how insane that sounds, saying it out loud." "It sounds insane," Bella agreed quietly, "because it is." "I know." He pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes for a moment. "I know, Bella. I've had a lot of time to think, this past week, about how none of that makes any sense. I think I knew it didn't make sense even then. I think I just needed it to be true, because the alternative was admitting I was hurting you on purpose, and I didn't want to be that person." "But you were that person," Bella said. "Not cruelly. Just true. I know." His voice broke slightly. "I know I was." For a moment, neither of them said anything. The cafe noise continued around them, laughter from another table, the hiss of an espresso machine, utterly indifferent to the conversation happening in the middle of it. "Bella." Daniel leaned forward slightly, and something in his expression shifted, desperation, finally surfacing under the regret. "I'm not asking you to forgive what I did. I know that's too much to ask. But I am asking you to think about this clearly. About him." "Don't," Bella said quietly. "I just want you to consider it," Daniel pressed on, faster now, like he could feel his window closing. "You met him the day your whole world fell apart. He was there, Bella, at exactly the right moment. Don't you think that's strange? A man like that, with his whole image, his lifestyle, and he just happens to be in that hospital hallway, just happens to have time to spend every single day with a married woman. He's not like that, Daniel." "How do you know?" Daniel's voice was low now, urgent. "Bella, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because some part of me still cares what happens to you, even now, even after everything. Men like that, they read people. They know exactly what someone vulnerable needs to hear. And you were so vulnerable, Bella. Sick, scared, alone, betrayed, and he showed up and gave you exactly what you needed, every single time, like he had a script for it." He shook his head slowly. "I'm not saying he's a bad person. I'm saying, be careful. Please. That's all I'm asking. Just be careful." Bella sat back, studying him, this man she'd spent 3 years of her life with, who she'd once have trusted completely, now sitting across from her with red eyes and a story that almost sounded like concern. "Daniel," she said finally, "do you know what's funny?" He looked at her, waiting. 3 weeks ago, you told me, to my face, that I was too sick to be worth anything to you. That Vivian was doing us a favor by giving you what I couldn't." Bella's voice was steady, even gentle, in a way that made the words land harder, not softer. And now, the moment you've lost everything, suddenly you're worried about my vulnerability. Suddenly you care so much about who's taking advantage of me. She tilted her head slightly. Where was that concern a month ago, Daniel? Where was it for the last 3 years? Daniel opened his mouth, closed it again. I think, Bella continued, quieter now, that you're not actually worried about me at all. I think you've lost everything, your wife, your reputation, your parents' trust, the company, Vivian, and the only thing you have left is the idea that maybe, if you can convince me Jungwook isn't real, isn't genuine, then maybe none of this was really your fault. Maybe I was just taken advantage of. An easy explanation. Easier than the truth, which is that I left because of what you did. Not because of anything he did. That's not. It is, though. Bella stood, gathering her things, calm in a way that felt, finally, completely her own. I appreciate you signing the papers, Daniel. I mean that. But I don't need you to worry about me anymore. I haven't needed that in a long time. I just didn't realize it until recently. She paused at the edge of the table, looking down at him, this man who, for 3 years, she'd organized her entire life around protecting. Take care of yourself, she said. And for the first time, she meant it the way you'd say it to a stranger. Politely. Finally. Without anything underneath it at all. She walked out of the cafe without looking back and didn't see the way Daniel sat there for a long time afterward, staring at nothing, finally, completely alone. Outside, her phone buzzed. Jungwook. Jungwook, you said you'd call after your client meeting. Everything okay? Bella stood on the sidewalk for a moment, late afternoon lights spilling gold across the street, and felt something settle in her chest, quiet, certain, entirely new. Bella, everything's okay. Better than okay, actually. I'll tell you when I get home. Jungwook, home. Bella, home. There was a pause and then. Jungwook, okay. Drive safe. I'll have dinner ready. She smiled, pocketing her phone, and for the first time in longer than she could remember, the word home didn't feel like something she had to qualify or explain or apologize for. It just felt true. The call came 9 days after the divorce was finalized, Mr. Choi's assistant asking, with careful formality, if Bella could come in for an urgent conversation with the board. Not a meeting. A conversation. The distinction wasn't lost on her. It's bad, Mira said, walking with her toward the boardroom, voice low. 3 of the major investors pulled out this week. Han was reconsidering the partnership entirely, they're citing instability in leadership. The stock dropped 11% since the story broke. Bella absorbed that in silence. 11%. She thought of every late night, every strategy deck, every relationship she'd spent 3 years building, watching it all wobble now because of decisions she'd had no part in. And Daniel, she asked. Myra's expression flickered. He's already inside. The boardroom felt different this time, not tense in the way it had been during the photo scandal, but charged with something more decisive. Sarah and Gabriel were seated near the head of the table, which Bella hadn't expected. Daniel sat across from them, jaw tight, posture rigid in a way that told Bella he already knew, on some level, why he'd been called here too. Thank you for coming, Bella, Mr. Choi said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Not beside Daniel, she noted. Across. I'll be direct, given the circumstances. The board has lost confidence in current leadership. Investors are citing the same concern, repeatedly. Instability, lack of judgment, a pattern of decisions that put personal interests ahead of the company's. He glanced, briefly, at Daniel, who said nothing, his hands flat on the table, knuckles pale. We've discussed this at length, Gabriel said, his voice steady but heavy, the voice of a man who'd had to reckon with something painful and come out the other side of it changed. And the board has voted. We'd like to offer you Daniel's position, Bella. Effective immediately, pending your acceptance. The room went still. Me, Bella repeated. You built half of what's still standing, Sarah said quietly. Every account that's still loyal to us, they're loyal because of relationships you built. Every strategy that's actually working right now is one you designed. The board doesn't trust decisions made on instinct and ego anymore. Her eyes flicked, just for a moment, to her son. We need someone investors trust. Someone with judgment. That's not a hard decision for any of us. Daniel's chair scraped back before anyone could say anything else. You can't be serious. His voice was low, tight, the careful composure from the cafe gone entirely. She's not even. She doesn't have the experience to run the entire company. She was a strategist. She was never meant to. Daniel. Gabriel's voice cut through, quiet but absolute. We've made our decision. This is insane. Daniel turned to Bella now, something desperate creeping into his voice. Bella, you don't even want this. Be honest, you've never wanted to run anything. You liked being behind the scenes. You're not. This isn't you. This is just, he gestured wildly, this is the board panicking, trying to fix a PR problem by putting a sympathetic face in charge. It's not about whether you can actually do this. I helped build the foundation this company is currently standing on, Bella said, and her voice was calm, calmer than she felt, but calm nonetheless. I think I can manage standing on it too, Daniel. You're doing this out of spite. His composure cracked further, voice rising. This is revenge. This is you taking everything, just like you said you would, and dressing it up as some boardroom decision, like it's not personal. It was never going to be personal for me, Daniel, Bella said quietly. It's only personal for you, because you're the one losing something this time. It was only then, with Daniel's voice rising, the room tightening around him, that Bella let herself glance toward the far end of the table, to the seat that had been quietly occupied this entire time. Young Wook. She hadn't placed him at first. He'd been seated among the investor representatives when she walked in, unobtrusive, just another name on a list she hadn't thought to check closely. It was only now, watching him watch Daniel with that same unhurried calm she remembered from the hospital hallway, that the pieces clicked into place. The Kim Group. One of Lawson's oldest institutional investors, a relationship that, she now realized, must have predated her marriage entirely. She'd simply never had reason to connect the name to him. He hadn't said a word the entire meeting. He didn't need to. His presence alone, silent, attentive, completely unbothered by Daniel's unraveling, had clearly been doing something to Daniel's composure long before either of them spoke. Daniel rounded on him now, voice cracking with something close to disbelief. Of course you're here. Of course. He let out a short, humiliated laugh. Tell me, did you know? When you funded this board's confidence in her, did you know exactly who she was to me before any of this started, or did you just get lucky that the woman you... Daniel. Youngwook's voice was even, almost pleasant, the same unhurried tone from the hallway, all those weeks ago. He didn't raise it. He didn't need to. The Kim Group's position on this board has been a matter of record for 11 years. Longer than your marriage. I'd be careful about implying anything that could be checked in about 4 minutes. He let that settle, then added, mild as anything, but to answer the question you're actually asking, no. I didn't know who she was to you, that day in the hospital. I just knew she was someone crying alone in a hallway, and that nobody should be that alone. A pause. Everything since then has just been a very long coincidence working in her favor instead of yours. I'd get used to that feeling if I were you. It tends to happen to people who've spent years assuming things would always work out their way. The room had gone very still. This is insane, Daniel said again, but quieter now. Defeated, the fight finally draining out of him. All of you. This is insane. Daniel. Sarah's voice was gentle, but final. It's done. We'd ask that you clear out your office by the end of the week. We'll handle the transition announcement carefully. There's no need for this to be any more public than it has to be. A pause, and something in her expression softened, just slightly, the last remnant of a mother who still loved her son, even now. We still love you. That doesn't change. But we can't let what's left of this company go down with you. I hope, someday, you'll understand that this isn't about punishment. It's about what's left to protect. Daniel didn't answer. He just stood, gathered the folder in front of him with hands that weren't quite steady, and walked out without looking at anyone, not his parents, not the board, not Bella. The door clicked shut behind him, and for a long moment, no one spoke. Bella. Mr. Choi's voice was gentler now, the formality softened. Take whatever time you need to decide. We know this is a lot, and we know the circumstances are complicated. But for what it's worth, every person at this table believes you're the right choice. Not because of sympathy, because of competence. Bella looked around the table, at Sarah and Gabriel, at the board members who doubted her weeks ago and now sat waiting, genuinely, for her answer, and then, briefly, down the table at Youngwook, who simply held her gaze, arms loosely folded. An expression that held no pressure at all. Just quiet faith. Whatever she decided would be right, because she was the one deciding it. I'll need a few days, Bella said. But, thank you. All of you. I don't take this lightly. Take your time, Gabriel said. You've more than earned it. In the car afterward, Bella sat in silence for a long moment, processing the weight of it, the strangeness of being offered the very thing Daniel had spent 3 years building his identity around, now hers for the taking, not because she'd fought for it, but because everyone else had finally seen what she'd always quietly been. You okay? Youngwook asked, glancing over. I don't know, Bella admitted. It's a lot. The company. Everything Daniel built his whole life around, and now it's just mine. If I want it. Do you want it? Bella considered the question for a long moment, watching the city slide by outside the window, the same city, the same streets, but somehow looking different now, full of possibility instead of obligation. I think, she said slowly, I want to find out what I actually want. Not what I was supposed to want. Not what made his parents happy, or kept the peace, or made me useful. She looked over at him. For the first time in years, I get to just ask myself that question. And actually mean it. Youngwook reached over, taking her hand, threading his fingers through hers. Then take your time, he said simply. Whatever you decide, I'm not going anywhere. Bella smiled, leaning her head back against the seat, and let herself, for once, just breathe. Dinner was quiet that night, not uncomfortable, just the particular kind of quiet that settles after a long day, when neither person feels the need to fill every silence. Youngwook had made something simple, rice and grilled fish, and Bella found herself watching him move around the kitchen with an ease that, somewhere in the last weeks, had stopped feeling borrowed and started feeling familiar. You're staring, he said, without turning around. I'm appreciating, Bella corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Slightly. He brought the plates over, sat across from her, and for a while they just ate easy, unhurried, the kind of dinner that didn't need to be anything other than what it was. It was Bella who broke the quiet, eventually. Not because anything was wrong. Just because something had been sitting in her chest for days, and the longer she carried it without saying it, the heavier it got. Can I ask you something? She said. And I need you to actually think about it before you answer. Not just say the nice thing. Youngwook set his chopsticks down, giving her his full attention in the way he always did, like whatever she was about to say mattered more than anything else in the room. Okay. Do you ever think about what you're signing up for? Bella's voice was quieter now, careful. With me, I mean. Not romantically, necessarily, I know we haven't. I just mean. Generally. Being around me. What do you mean? I mean I'm sick, Youngwook. She said it plainly, the way she learned to say it to doctors, to insurance companies, to anyone who needed the unvarnished facts. Not recovering from a bad week, sick. Actually sick. I need a transplant I don't have a donor for, and until that happens or doesn't, this is just what my life is. Hospital visits. Bad days I can't always predict. A body that might just decide not to cooperate, regardless of how careful I am. She looked down at her plate. And I've watched what that does to people. I watched it do something to my marriage, even before I knew the real reasons why. She took a breath. I don't want you to wake up in a year and realize you signed up for someone's worst days without really understanding what that meant. I don't want to be something you feel obligated to. The kitchen was quiet. Is that what you think this is? Youngwook's voice was careful, but there was something underneath it, not hurt exactly, but close. Obligation. I don't know what I think. Bella's voice wavered, just slightly. I just know that everyone in my life who was supposed to stay, stayed because it was easy, until it wasn't, and then they found reasons to be somewhere else. And you've been so, she gestured vaguely, helplessly. You've been so good to me, Young-wook, and some part of me keeps waiting for the moment that stops. Because it always stops. And I don't think I could survive that. Not from you. Not after everything. Young-wook didn't say anything for a long moment. He just looked at her, really looked, the way he had that first day in the hospital hallway, like he was taking in something he didn't want to look away from. Can I tell you something? He said finally. And I need you to actually hear it. Not just brace for the nice thing and wait for the catch. Bella nodded, throat tight. The day I met you, Young-wook said slowly, you were a stranger. Crying in a hallway, in a hospital I'd only gone to because my mom had an appointment I was driving her to. I had no reason to stay. No reason to learn your name, or bring you soup, or argue with a landlord about a hallway's energy. The corner of his mouth lifted, briefly, before going serious again. I stayed because something about you, even like that, even falling apart, made me want to know what you were like on a good day. And every day since then, I've gotten to find out. And every single time, Bella, you've been more than I expected. Not despite being sick. Just you. The sickness is part of your life. It's not the whole of who you are, and it's definitely not the reason I'm here. But it's a lot, Bella said quietly. It's not nothing, Young-wook. No, he agreed. It's not nothing. I'm not going to pretend it's nothing, because that would be a lie, and I don't want to start anything with you on a lie. You've had enough of those. He reached across the table, taking her hand, not the careful, asking permission touch from before, but steadier now, certain. But Bella, I'm not scared of your bad days. I've already seen some of them. I was there for some of them. And I came back the next day anyway. And the day after that. Not because I felt like I had to. Because I wanted to. You say that now, Bella said, and her voice cracked on it, finally, all the fear she'd been holding spilling out at once. But what if it gets worse? What if the transplant never happens, and I just get sicker, and there's nothing anyone can do, and you're stuck watching that happen to someone you? Then I'll be there for that too, Young-wook said simply. Bella, I'm not offering you a version of this where everything is easy and nothing ever goes wrong. I don't think that version exists for anyone, sick or not. I'm offering you me. However long, whatever it looks like. I'd rather have however much time there is with you than a guaranteed amount of time with anyone else. Bella stared at him, tears finally spilling over, not the broken, blind tears from that first day, but something else entirely. Something that felt, for once, like relief. That's the most absurdly romantic thing anyone's ever said to me, she said, half laughing, half crying. And you didn't even plan it. You just said it. Like it was obvious. It is obvious, Young-wook said softly. It's been obvious for weeks. I just didn't want to say it until you were ready to hear it without bracing for the catch. There's no catch. There's no catch, Bella. She looked at him, at this man with tattoos he'd once used to scare off strangers and a piercing his mother probably still complained about, who'd spent every day for weeks proving, quietly and without asking for anything in return, that not everyone who stayed was performing, and felt something in her chest that she hadn't let herself feel in years. Not fear. Not gratitude, exactly, though there was some of that too. Just certainty. Young-wook, she said quietly. Yeah, I think I'm in love with you. He went very still. And then, slowly, a smile broke across his face, not his usual easy, teasing smile, but something softer. Something that looked, for the first time, almost shy. Yeah, he said again, quieter this time. Yeah. He reached up, gently, brushing his thumb along her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't realized was still falling, and for a moment, neither of them moved, the space between them charged with everything they'd both been carefully not saying for weeks. Then he leaned in, slowly, giving her every chance to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't want to. When he kissed her, it wasn't rushed or desperate or anything like the chaos of the day they'd met. It was quiet, careful, certain, the kind of kiss that felt less like a beginning and more like something that had been true for a while, finally being allowed to exist out loud. When they finally pulled apart, Youngwook rested his forehead against hers, both of them smiling in the dark kitchen, neither in any hurry to move. For the record, he murmured, "I've wanted to do that since the hallway." The hallway? I was sobbing. You had very dramatic eyebrows, he said. I told you. Compelling. Bella laughed, really laughed, the sound filling the quiet kitchen, and kissed him again, just because she could. It was almost 2 weeks later when Youngwook came home holding an envelope he wouldn't look at directly, setting it on the counter with a kind of careful nonchalance that immediately put Bella on alert. What's that? Nothing important. He was already moving toward the kitchen, not quite meeting her eyes. How was your day? Youngwook. It's really not. Youngwook. Bella picked up the envelope before he could stop her. The hospital's letterhead. Her stomach dropped, old instinct, bracing for bad news before she even opened it. It's not about you, he said quickly. I mean, it is, but not. Just open it. Please. She opened it. It took her a moment to understand what she was looking at. The format was unfamiliar, not her usual blood work. A donor compatibility report. Her name listed as recipient. His name listed as donor. Match confirmed. Compatible donor identified. Proceed to transplant scheduling. Recommended timeline. Within 4 weeks. Bella read it 3 times before she looked up at him, breath caught somewhere in her chest. You got tested. 3 weeks ago. He rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly looking less like the steady, unshakable person she'd come to rely on and more like someone bracing for a reaction he couldn't predict. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to get your hopes up if it didn't, and then it did, and I still didn't know how to bring it up because I know how complicated this is for you, given, he gestured vaguely, encompassing, Bella understood, the entire history of fake tests and false hope that had brought them here in the first place. You're a match, Bella said, like she needed to hear herself say it out loud to believe it. I'm a match. You already scheduled it? She looked back down at the paper. It says scheduling. I already scheduled it, Youngwook confirmed. Provisionally. I figured if I waited for the perfect moment to bring it up, I'd wait forever, and you don't exactly have forever to spare on my emotional timing issues. Bella stared at him, the paper trembling slightly in her hands. Youngwook, this is surgery. For you. Recovery, risk, all of it, and we're not even. She stopped, then laughed, disbelieving. I mean, we are now, I suppose, but a few weeks ago we weren't even together, and you were already. I know we weren't together, Youngwook said simply. I got tested before any of that happened. Before the kiss, before any of it. He stepped closer, taking her hands, the paper crumpling gently between them. Bella, I wasn't doing it because I wanted something from you, or because I was waiting for you to feel a certain way about me first. I did it because I'm in love with you, and I wasn't going to lose you to something I might have been able to prevent, whether or not you ever loved me back. Bella's eyes filled, fast and sudden. Youngwook. I'd have done it either way, he said softly. I just got lucky that I don't have to choose between the 2 things I want most. Bella cried, properly, this time, the good kind of crying, the kind that came from a weight finally lifting after years of carrying it, and Youngwook held her in the kitchen for a long time, neither of them saying much else, because there wasn't really anything else that needed to be said. The surgery was scheduled for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, life, somehow impossibly, kept being normal in the small ways that mattered. Soo-yeon came by more often now that the relationship wasn't a secret anymore, though secret had always been generous, given how transparent Youngwook apparently was to everyone except himself. Mom wants to meet you, Soo-yeon announced one evening, sprawled on the couch with the easy entitlement of someone who considered Youngwook's apartment partially hers. Officially, I mean. She's been asking for weeks. Ever since Appa mentioned, and I quote, a friend. A friend, Bella repeated, amused. He said it with air quotes, Bella. Over the phone. You can't do air quotes over the phone and expect anyone to believe you. Soo-yeon rolled her eyes extravagantly. Honestly, it's a relief. Mom had basically given up on him. She'd started saying things like, whatever makes him happy in that voice. You know the one, the resigned one. The resigned one? The one parents use when they've quietly accepted their kid might just not date. Ever. She'd started buying him things for his apartment, like, very deliberately not couple things. Extra pillows. A second coffee mug she insisted was just in case he had a roommate someday. Soo-yeon grinned. We all kind of thought he was gay, honestly. He never talked about anyone. Ever. Just work, and me, and occasionally complaining about traffic. From the kitchen, Youngwook's voice came, flat and weary. I can hear you. I know, Soo-yeon called back, entirely unbothered. I'm not wrong, though. You're not wrong, Youngwook admitted, appearing in the doorway with a dish towel over his shoulder, but you don't have to announce it to my girlfriend like it's breaking news. It is breaking news. Bella, this is breaking news. Appa has a girlfriend. Mom is going to actually cry. She's been planning a whole, I think there's a folder, Bella. An actual folder. Of grandchild names. She started it years ago. Hypothetically. Just in case. Soo-yeon. I'm just saying, Soo-yeon said, grinning wider, you've single-handedly fixed our entire family's vibe. Mom's going to credit you with, like, restoring his masculinity or something. She's very dramatic about it. You'll see. Bella, caught somewhere between laughing and being mildly alarmed, looked at Youngwook. A folder of grandchild names? I'm choosing not to confirm or deny that, Youngwook said, with the air of a man who knew, with total certainty, that the folder was real. Meeting his mother, a few days later, went better than the folder comment had prepared Bella for, though only slightly. Mrs. Kim took one look at Bella, then at her son, then back at Bella, and pressed both hands to her chest like she'd just witnessed something miraculous. So it's true, she said, voice thick. Soo-yeon wasn't exaggerating. Oh, thank goodness. She reached for Bella's hands, holding them tightly, eyes already glassy. I'm so happy to meet you, dear. So happy. You have no idea, we genuinely started to worry. Mom. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm just saying we worried, and now we don't have to, and that's a wonderful thing. She turned back to Bella, beaming. He's going to take such good care of you. He already does, doesn't he? I can tell. He has that look. He really does, Bella agreed, glancing at Youngwook, who looked equal parts mortified and helplessly fond. Good. Mrs. Kim patted Bella's hands once, decisively, like a verdict had been reached. Good. Now, tell me everything. Soo-yeon said you met at a hospital? That's so romantic. Like a drama. Oh, I have so many questions. Youngwook caught Bella's eye over his mother's shoulder, mouthing a silent, exhausted apology. Bella just smiled, and let herself be pulled into the warmth of it, a family that wanted her there, asking questions because they were happy, not suspicious. It was, she realized, the first time meeting someone's family had ever felt like this. Like being welcomed, instead of evaluated. The transplant went smoothly, smoother than Bella had let herself hope for, after years of bracing for the worst news in every hospital room she'd ever sat in. Recovery took weeks, careful and slow, but for the first time in longer than she could remember, every test came back with the same word. Improving. By the time Youngwook proposed, quietly, at home, no grand gesture, just him sitting across from her one evening with a small box and an expression of barely contained nerves that she found more endearing than any elaborate scene could have been. She didn't hesitate for even a second. Yes, she said, before he'd even finished the question, and he laughed, relieved and a little stunned, like he'd spent days preparing a speech he suddenly didn't need. The wedding was small. Intentional. Sarah and Gabriel were there, present in a way that felt like quiet penance, the kind that didn't need words anymore. Mrs. Kim cried through nearly the entire ceremony, loudly, unapologetically, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief she'd apparently brought specifically for this purpose. Soo-yeon gave a toast that was somehow both deeply embarrassing and the most heartfelt thing Bella had ever heard, ending with, honestly, I've never seen him this happy, and I've known him his whole life, so yeah. Take care of him. He's annoying, but he's ours. Bella wore her hair in a high bun with soft baby hairs framing her face, and when Youngwook saw her, he didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked like he was committing the sight of her to memory. It was, everyone agreed afterward, exactly the kind of wedding that suited them. Quiet. Warm. Theirs. About a month after the wedding, Bella started feeling off. Not sick, exactly, not the kind of off she'd spent years learning to monitor and worry about. Just tired in a way that didn't match how well she'd been doing. Her appetite had shifted. Small things easy to dismiss, except Bella had learned the hard way never to dismiss small things with her body. She didn't tell Youngwook at first, not because she was hiding it, but because some old instinct flared up. The familiar tightness of something might be wrong. Don't worry anyone yet, find out first. So when Mrs. Kim called to ask if Bella wanted to come along to a routine appointment of her own, just for company, dear, you know how I hate going alone, Bella found herself, almost on impulse, asking the doctor afterward if she could be seen too. Just a quick check. Just to be safe. Mrs. Kim waited outside, chatting with a nurse, completely unaware that anything was happening beyond a courtesy visit. When the doctor came back with the results, Bella sat very still, the same way she had in another hospital a lifetime ago, bracing for news that would change everything. This time it did, just not the way she'd expected. Congratulations, the doctor said, smiling. You're about 2 weeks along. Bella sat in stunned silence for a long moment before something that was half laugh, half sob escaped her, disbelieving, overwhelmed, happy in a way that felt almost too big for her chest to hold. Mrs. Kim, waiting outside, took one look at Bella's face when she came out and immediately knew something had happened, though clearly not what. What is it? Are you okay? Bella, you're scaring me. I'm pregnant, Bella said, and the words still felt unreal even as she said them. Mrs. Kim's hands flew to her mouth. For a moment, she didn't make a sound at all, and then she burst into tears, loud and immediate, pulling Bella into a hug so tight it nearly knocked the wind out of her. Oh, Bella, a grandbaby, she managed, between sobs. I have to call Seon, I have to call everyone. Please don't call everyone before I tell Youngwook, Bella laughed, half crying herself now. Of course, oh, this is, Bella, thank you, Mrs. Kim said, still holding her hands, beaming through tears. Thank you for choosing him. Thank you for all of it. That evening, Bella sat Youngwook down at the kitchen table, the same table where, weeks ago, he'd handed her a donor compatibility report and changed both their lives, and slid an envelope across to him. What's this? Open it. He did. Read it. Read it again. And then looked up at her, eyes wide, completely speechless for what might have been the first time since she'd met him. You're 2 weeks, Bella confirmed, smiling, watching every emotion cross his face at once, shock, disbelief, and then, breaking through all of it, pure, overwhelming joy. He came around the table and pulled her into his arms, lifting her slightly off her feet, laughing into her hair, and Bella laughed too, holding on to him, both of them caught somewhere between tears and joy, a year ago feeling impossibly far away. A baby, Youngwook said, like he needed to say it out loud to believe it. Bella, we're having a baby. We're having a baby, she agreed, and for a long moment, neither of them said anything else. They just held each other, in the quiet kitchen, in the life they'd built, slowly, carefully, out of the wreckage of everything that had come before. The knock at the door came 3 days later. Bella was in the kitchen when she heard it, and heard, a moment after, Youngwook's voice answering it, casual at first. Yeah? Can I? He stopped. Bella looked up at the sudden change in his voice, the way it had gone flat, careful, in a way she'd never heard from him before. Not even with Daniel. Not even at his angriest. She walked toward the front hall, drying her hands on a dish towel, and stopped in the doorway. A man stood on their doorstep, older than Youngwook, maybe by a decade, dressed sharply, with the kind of composed, patient smile that immediately put Bella on edge. He looked at Youngwook the way someone looks at an old debt they've finally come to collect. It's been a long time, Youngwook, the man said, pleasant, almost warm, and somehow, that warmth was the most unsettling thing about him. His gaze shifted, briefly, to Bella, taking her in with an assessing glance that lasted half a second too long. Wife? Congratulations. I heard you'd settled down. He looked back at Youngwook, smile widening slightly. I have to say, I didn't expect to have to come find you. I thought, eventually, you'd come find me. We do still have some unfinished business, after all. Youngwook's hand found Bella's, gripping it, not painfully, but with a kind of urgency she'd never felt from him before. Bella, he said quietly, without looking away from the man on their doorstep, go inside. Youngwook. Please, he said. And for the first time since she'd known him, his voice was shaking.